Hey everyone, welcome to Judging for the Win. I'm Dave, and this is my daily ruling. I had a few of my colleagues suggest this question, and of course it also comes from the True Stories collection. Amy controls a 1/1 army, and casts a Foray of Orcs, saying that she wants to deal damage to Nick's king of the Oathbreakers. Nick says that he'll play a lightning bolt against the army in response. What happens? Okay, so before we answer this question, I think it's important to go over a little bit of background on exactly how Foray of Orcs works. See, dealing damage to the king doesn't actually happen as part of the resolution of that spell. In fact, the only things that happen as Foray of Orcs resolves is the amassing of an army and the setting up of a triggered ability. When this triggered ability resolves, that's when the damage actually gets dealt. Let's notice an important consequence of this related to the original problem statement. The king of the Oathbreakers never actually became the target of a spell. It became the target of an ability. Therefore, it will not phase out. I think there's two reasons why Foray of Orcs has this sort of roundabout wording. First, it makes it clear that the amassing happens before the damage, so that in a case where the +1/+1 counters are being put on an existing army, everyone knows that you deal the damage based on the new, greater power. As a judge, I see questions on a similar theme fairly often, so I'm confident in saying that this card has been made a lot clearer because of that templating. Longtime fans of the channel might recall that the effects of the spell happen in the order that they're written, so that means that this wording isn't strictly necessary from that standpoint, just helpful. They could have accomplished the same thing by simply writing that the damage dealing happens after the token making. Which brings us to the second reason for this wording. Longtime fans of this channel might also recall that if all of the targets of a spell are illegal by the time it tries to resolve, then it gets removed from the stack and none of its effects happen, even effects that have nothing to do with the stuff that the spell targeted. So if we were dealing with something like an improvised weaponry and something happened to the target that made it illegal in response to that spell, then improvised weaponry would not get to resolve at all. Amy wouldn't even get the token. As a judge, I also see questions on this theme all the time, so let's appreciate how the wording of Foray of Orcs fixes this issue completely. Since the spell, Foray of Orcs, doesn't have any targets at all, there's no way that Nick can do anything to the king of the Oathbreakers to stop Amy from getting to amass. Making the targeted part a separate triggered ability isolates it from the other effects of the spell, so that they don't interfere with each other. Unfortunately, there's a cost to these benefits, which is a little bit of ambiguity. When Nick said that he was casting the lightning bolt in response, was he responding to the Foray of Orcs spell, or the triggered ability that does the damage? Observe that there actually is in fact a material difference between these two plays. If Nick casts the lightning bolt in response to the Foray of Orcs spell, he'll kill the existing army. The Amass 2 that happens when the spell resolves will put a new 0/0 army into play and put 2 counters on it, and then 2 damage will be dealt to King of the Oathbreakers. On the other hand, let's say that Nick plays the lightning bolt against the army in response to the When You Do triggered ability from Foray of Orcs. In this case, when that triggered ability resolves, it will try to deal damage equal to the amassed army's power. Except the amassed army isn't in play anymore, meaning that the game will use the last known information about this object to determine its power. As it last existed on the battlefield, the army was a 3/3, so 3 damage will be dealt to King of the Oathbreakers. Let's notice that if Nick had a last gasp instead of a lightning bolt, then that would change the answer for that latter case. The last gasp reduces the power as well as the toughness of the targeted creature, meaning that the last known information about the army would be that it was a 0/0 if it was killed this way. This means Foray of Orcs will deal 0 damage in this case. Now, I've heard some rumors that maybe some of Magic's digital clients might not handle this interaction correctly, but rest assured that the answer is exactly as I just said. But that's all I have for you today. How did you do? Join me again next time for another daily ruling, but until then, I hope you have a great day.